What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Red Tooth Games Weekly, your source for all things good in video games throughout the week, all the latest headlines, the reviews, and upcoming releases. I'm your host, Neil Rivera, and I've brought along once again my brother and dear friend, Wesley Rivera. How you doing, Wes?
Doing very good today, very good.
Good. Well, we made it through the first episode without syncing everything, and I want to say we did a pretty good job. So let's hope we don't fall into a sophomore slump the second time around. But once again, we've got another great show for you guys. If you didn't know, like I said, Red Tooth Games Weekly is our weekly show dedicated to all things great in video games. It is part of our Red Tooth Games channel. You can find us on Facebook.com/RedToothGames, Twitter.com/RedToothGames, and also on YouTube.com as well. Wesley, we're going to start off the show similarly to how we did last week. What did you play last week?
So last week, I actually got my PC up and running. I feel proud to finally call myself a PC gamer. And one of my go-to PC games of all time, well, Steam, is always The Forest. I love watching this game develop, and so now that I have like an actual PC, I could, play it at its highest settings, and every time I come back to it, there's always new stuff waiting for me, and I enjoy it every time.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Wesley, Wesley has never owned a PC, and in fact, with my launching kind of officially, quote unquote, of the Red Tooth Games channel, I built myself a second computer, had some extra components, and said, "Hey Wesley, welcome to PC gaming." And he kind of just flushed out. We literally made him a Frankenstein PC. So he will get plenty of use out of my old parts. And then for those of you who don't know, The Forest is a fantastic game. It caught my eye when I kind of started doing freelance games journalism. This guy who ran a website that I was working for kind of discovered it and brought it to my attention. And it's definitely like, if you're interested in these like open world sandbox kind of survival games, kind of like Minecraft, but this one has a lot more horror elements to it, right, Wes?
Yes, it's sort of like if an episode of Man vs. Wild was a video game.
Right. I mean, and the whole premise is you're in a plane crash, you're on this weird island type thing, and there are these natives, quote unquote, that aren't really friendly.
They're cannibals.
Right, pretty much, for lack of a better term. And they, in the beginning, they kind of like stay away from you. They're kind of like curious, but as you progress and start building your base up a little bit more and more, they will just like come and rush the hell out of you.
They've really upgraded the enemy, or just the native behavior. So depending on how you fend off your home, or your base of operations, or if you actually go on the front attacking, they react perfectly to it. And like the next day and like the following days, they change their tactics. So like if you start using fire against them, they'll start using fire back at you. Or if you just whatever you do, they react naturally and realistically, which is just, it's boggling to just see everything happen.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was one of those games that fell into the trap of, hey, here's this early access survival game, and it kind of just released in a sea of a bunch of those other games. So I played it, I enjoyed it, but I definitely didn't catch on. It didn't catch on the way it did with me, where it's just like, I'll go around, I'll mess around, but it didn't hook me, because there's games like that are a dime a dozen nowadays.
That is true.
But moving on to what I played this past week, I had the ultimate joy of playing not one, but not two, but three of the games we talked about last week, which I don't even think we talked about all three of these, but I got to play Monster Hunter World, I got to play Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I also got to play Celeste. This is an indie platformer that released pretty much on every platform, but I played it on Switch. And believe it or not, Celeste was the game that really just kind of hooked me. I guess I'll talk about Celeste first. It's this really small indie platformer. Think and it's tough as nails. So think Super Meat Boy is kind of the closest thing that comes to mind, where it's just like perfectly crafted in that it feels difficult at all times, but it's every challenge feels like you can overcome it. And the game does a fantastic job of not making you feel like a failure for continually failing. In fact, it encourages, like, that's a main theme of the game, is failure, a fear of failure, but not letting your fear of failure prevent you from trying to do the thing that you want to do.
It's like an ultimate sense of like accomplishment as you play this game.
Right. And so, I mean, obviously a big part of the joy you get playing this game is the satisfaction, those momentary moments of satisfaction where you complete a tough platforming section and then move on to the next one. I'd be stuck on stuff for 5-10 minutes, and when I finally nailed it absolutely perfectly, it was just like, yes, like, that was worth it. Moving on into the themes of the game, it's another one of those games that, like, similarly to Hellblade, where it really touches on, like, mental health issues. Though it's not as in your face as Hellblade is. Like, Hellblade is literally in your face with depression and psychosis and things like that. Where Celeste is more of just kind of like a, hey, like, you play as Madeline, she's the main protagonist, and she's just like unsure of herself, and she always just kind of talks herself out of it. She lets her depression tell her that, oh, I'm not good enough, and oh, I can't do this, and the entire point of the game is to climb a mountain. And so as you're climbing the mountain, her depression physically manifests itself as the quote-unquote antagonist, which obviously makes for some of the more challenging platforming parts. But as the game progresses, like, there's just really some great heartfelt moments throughout it. It's a really well written game. Like I said, playing, like, last week, I thought, like, Monster Hunter and Dragon Ball FighterZ were just really gonna hook me. And I really kind of misjudged Celeste, because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's another 2D pixel platformer, kind of like how we were talking with The Forest, where it's like, oh, it's another early access survival game. But yeah, I really, you can't, Celeste is proof that you can't judge a book by its cover, especially with games, because when you actually get in there and play it, it's really, really good. And then speaking on the other two games, I haven't had a ton of time with either of them. Monster Hunter is good. Like, I don't really, like, it's not blowing me away. It's like, the combat's really janky, the movement's really janky, but I feel like if you've played the Monster Hunter games, you'll be a little bit more familiar. But someone like me who hasn't played them, like, the first thing I thought was, it doesn't really control very well. Everything's too slow. And my other big complaint is that the UI is just, like, assaulting you. Where it's just like, hey, here's this new thing, and, like, stuff's always popping up on the on the screen, where it just kind of feels like an assault on the senses. Where I just want to sit back, enjoy the world, go hunt some monsters. There's always, like, something telling you where to go, or something popping up, like, hey, you discovered this, or hey, you've got, like, unsolved missions, or it'll tell you when different people in your play session connect or disconnect. So it's just like I said, constantly, like, things are constantly popping on the screen. Dragon Ball FighterZ is great. I'm really enjoying it. I'm not a huge fighting game guy. The online infrastructure is kind of weird, as far as, like, it makes you connect to an online lobby to access the single player stuff, which is pretty frustrating at times, because the servers haven't always 100% been reliable. Now, that being said, if I can't connect, it'll let you play some of that stuff offline, but it won't, like, it takes way longer than it's supposed to. Like, instead of me being able to jump in and, like, oh, let me just play arcade mode, or let me just play a couple rounds real quick, you kind of have to connect to the server. Oh, I can't connect to the server. Let's pick a lobby, and it takes a while. But as far as the actual fighting, the animation, the graphics, like, it's all really good if you're a Dragon Ball fan.
Nice.
So I feel like I've talked a lot about games. I've talked about games enough. So let's get right into the meat of the show here, talking about this past week in headlines. The first one is more of a rumor, but it is, if it holds true, a huge one. And it comes from the story. The original story comes from Polygon. And it's mainly about how the Xbox One has a serious exclusive games problem. That's the name of the article. But the more you read into the article, it's actually kind of hints at some rumors that might be going on with Microsoft purchasing some big publishers and developers. So I'm going to read an excerpt here. It says, some of the names being thrown around as possible acquisitions by Microsoft are frankly astounding, even unthinkable. But the fact that they're doing the rounds is instructive. The most recent one we heard, quote, from a reliable source close to Microsoft was, in fact, Electronic Arts. We also heard a whisper about Valve and about Korean outfit PUBG Corp, which Microsoft last year signed to a time exclusive for its hit survival shooter PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Wes, out of Electronic Arts, Valve, and PUBG Corp, who do you think is the most likely to be bought up by Microsoft?
PUBG for sure.
Yeah,
I feel they've already had a bit of an understanding with each other, especially with their Xbox exclusivity, if temporary at least. They seem to get along well, and being a small company, they can easily get absorbed into that conglomerate that is Microsoft.
Here's my thing, and a lot of people freaked out about this article, about this rumor, because EA, and we talked about this. We talked about this last week on the show, where EA is kind of in a weird place now, where they kind of have to deliver on what they've got coming up in Anthem and whatever games that they've got coming out. They have to make pro gamer moves, yada yada yada. We kind of all touched on that.
Yeah,
I kind of am with you on PUBG Corp. Although I think PUBG Corp would be leaving a lot of money on the table, not releasing PUBG on PlayStation 4. Because it's such a bigger install base. The fact that you've got 4 million players on Xbox right now, like, you could double that number easily on PlayStation 4. EA has an interesting relationship with Microsoft already, in that EA Access, their kind of subscription service where you can play older EA games, is Xbox exclusive, but I just don't see that happening. In fact, I think call me crazy, but I think Valve would make perfect sense if they were acquired by Microsoft. And it's kind of like you and I were talking before the show about how, Microsoft's issues stem from none of their games being true Xbox exclusive or true console exclusives. Yeah. Where, like, if a Gears of War 4 comes out on Xbox One, it also comes out on PC. So people who already own PCs don't have that incentive to buy an Xbox. I think Valve kind of fits that mold together, where it's like, all right, we've got the PC market cornered, especially when it comes to Dota and Steam. But obviously, I feel like that stuff would be separate. Another interesting thing would be that Valve hasn't made games in a very long time, or at least they haven't developed and published new games in a long time. Ever since Dota 2 came out, they've kind of really just been the Dota 2 team. We haven't seen anything from Left 4 Dead, which was an Xbox exclusive when it released.
But now it's easily on Steam and PC now.
Right, but I mean, that would make sense where, you say, okay, and I don't even think, I don't think the next Half-Life is going to come out exclusive to Xbox, if it ever does come out.
Yeah, I don't think Half-Life 3 is ever going to be a thing.
Yeah, I think the dream is dead. But I think between Microsoft's need, I feel like they fill a need for each other, where Microsoft has a need for, like, VR, and Valve has already invested millions, if not billions of dollars in VR. And you've got...
There was talk of augmented reality with Microsoft, but that's sort of...
They've kind of just been messing around with it. Yeah. I would like to see... I don't think you see Half-Life 3 come out, or even Left 4 Dead 3 come out as an Xbox exclusive. But I think if they partner up together, you'll end up seeing... a Valve exclusive... or an Xbox exclusive Valve title at some point for an Xbox console.
If such a thing were to happen, if Valve and Microsoft were to go ahead and make that happen, I would see a brand new franchise, but I'd also see possibly a Left 4 Dead 3, or willing Half-Life 3, something to show the future,
Yeah.
but then something to like, oh shit,
Yeah.
reel everyone in.
Well, I think you'll either see Left 4 Dead 3 is probably the highest profile thing you'd get. I could see a Portal. I could see a Team Fortress.
I didn't think about Portal. Yeah, I could see Portal.
Portal or Team Fortress, I would see. Half-Life, I think, is just out of the question. That would be, they would release that, lean into that heavy with the PC market. But it'd be interesting to see. Truth be told, I don't think any three of these are going to be bought up by Microsoft. I think you'll see Microsoft go out and buy up some indie studios. Someone like a Ninja Theory, who they developed and published Hellblade by themselves independently last year. So I mean, someone like a Ninja Theory they could go out and acquire. There was rumors floating around while Capcom was kind of struggling that someone was looking to buy Capcom. Though I think they've kind of leaned themselves more with Sony as far as exclusives go. But I think there's kind of more mid-tier-ish developers and publishers that Microsoft would go after rather than an EA or a Valve. PUBG Corp could happen, but I still don't see that happening.
It's funny you mentioned Capcom with Microsoft because one of the big Xbox exclusives via Capcom for a while was the Dead Rising series.
Right, Dead Rising and Recore. Was Recore? No, I don't think Recore was published by Capcom. It was just kind of like Capcom vets.
Yeah.
But you're right. Dead Rising was Xbox exclusive for a while, and now they're talking. The big rumor has been that when Devil May Cry, the new one, comes out, it'll be published by Capcom and it'll be PlayStation 5 or 4 exclusive. Wow, PlayStation 5.
Hey, one day.
Yeah, one day maybe. But Devil May Cry 5 would be a PlayStation 4 exclusive, which obviously is all rumors, but take it with a grain of salt. But could happen, could not happen. Speaking of EA, Wesley, continuing a conversation that we started last week, according to a financials released by EA, Star Wars Battlefront 2 isn't hitting their sales targets, and in-game sales will be returning soon. This story comes from PC Gamer. Star Wars Battlefront 2 publisher Electronic Arts planned to have sold 10 million copies of the sequel during the holiday quarter, but only managed 9 million, according to CFO Blake Jorgensen. Speaking to the Wall Street Journal, Jorgensen blamed controversy surrounding its loot box system for the missed sales target. And yet, despite signs that EA and DICE may opt not to reintroduce in-game monetization, Jorgensen has confirmed that they will indeed return. "We'll do it when we think it's ready," he said. He told Wall Street Journal, indicating that they'll come back to it, quote, "in the next few months." Wes, you play Star Wars Battlefront 2, or you own Star Wars Battlefront 2. Did you buy it because they backed off of the microtransactions?
That is exactly why. I played Battlefront, the first one, and it was all right, but it didn't feel complete. But then so they announced like, hey, we're gonna introduce a campaign and everything. So like, wow, all right, cool. We're fixing those mistakes. But then the microtransaction incident happened, and I knew I needed to step away. I needed to back off, let it do its thing, because I knew they were gonna fix this mistake, and almost immediately. And
right.
A month, 2 months after, they went ahead and they just pulled it.
Yeah, I want to say it wasn't even that long. I want to say it was like maybe a couple of days. But it's weird because they had so much goodwill going into that game, where they said, hey, here's all the things that you didn't like about Star Wars Battlefront, the reboot. And here's all the things that we're going to do to make it right. They added the single player story campaign. They said all of the add-on content was going to be free, which obviously meant that they were going to turn to in-game, microtransactions to help make that possible. But still, the fact that, instead of releasing a bare bones game and then releasing all these different packs to kind of flesh it out, they said, hey, you buy the game, you're going to get access to all the content we release for it. And then to turn around and just drop a bomb on it with these microtransactions, like, it all just changed really quickly, where I think a lot of people were hyped for it and then it didn't quite happen. That being said, 9 million units is a lot. as far as
Yeah.
sales wise. Obviously, they had high expectations for it. And to kind of put it in perspective, the original Star Wars Battlefront, the reboot, did about 13 million. So obviously, this is a little well short of that. But
Well,
are
we sort of
you?
have to. What were you going to say?
I was going to ask you if you would still continue to play the game and give it a chance after the microtransactions are reintroduced.
I personally will not be able to. Me and microtransactions do not get along. We get along very well, but I put too much into microtransactions. If you give me the option to, hey, you can get all that, I'm not good at grinding, essentially.
Right.
And so for me, microtransactions become this addictive substance for me. And I try to do my best. I do my best to keep clean and stay away from it. So the fact that they're so easy to hop back into this just to try to make their quota, I know I need to just sort of maybe dust my hands of this one.
Right, and it kind of and you bring up a good point where it doesn't seem like, because when they first said they were taking them away, they said, "Okay, we're going to take them away. We'll bring them back eventually." It seems like the timing of this seems tied to the fact that it's not selling well.
Yeah.
So they're not coming back, even though, Blake Jorgensen said, "Oh yeah, we'll bring him back when the time comes or when we think it's ready." It seems more like, and in keeping with what we've said about EA so far, it seems like a move more tied to their bottom line, where they're like, "Oh well, we're not making money on this game, so let's just throw these microtransactions in here to, see if we can turn a profit or see if we can increase our profits on it." So,
Talking about this, I'm suddenly wanting to change our last discussion about Microsoft picking up a studio. I kind of now want to lean towards EA just because it feels like it would be a way for them to make more money.
yeah, I mean, well, really not, because think about it. When you look at the console race and how far ahead Sony is, EA or any company that would be dedicated or married to Microsoft would be giving up a lot of market share.
You're absolutely okay. I didn't think about that. You are right.
Yeah, there's I think 70 plus million PlayStation 4s and like probably 35 million Xbox Ones. So anyone who's being exclusive to Microsoft is giving up, more than double what they'd be exclusive to. So I that's why I don't think any of those three are gonna happen. But it'll be interesting to see how the microtransactions turn out with Battlefront 2. I have a really sinking bad feeling that it's just going to be a slightly different version of what was going to be in the game at launch. Because I'm not invested at all in Battlefront 2, so I don't know. Have they made improvements to the grind of it? Because I remember at launch, it was, because they took out the microtransactions, a huge grind and like this huge time sink because you didn't have those microtransactions that were designed to boost you.
Well, I haven't put a penny, and I'm not able. I haven't been able to actually put any sort of currency microtransaction wise into it. But so the main thing were the heroes. You wanted to play as like Luke Skywalker. You wanted to play as Darth Vader. All in all, grinding wise, I have all but 3 of the people, that you can play as. So
do you know how much time you've put into the game?
I think I put like a total of maybe 40 hours.
Okay, well, that's not terrible.
That's not terrible at all.
Yeah, no,
that was like, I think when it initially came out, it was like 40 nonstop hours to unlock 1.
Right. So yeah, I think now that I think about it, I think they did release something saying that they did reduce it. It's just been so long since then. But anyway, moving on to more positive news. I know we like to shit on EA, and I know we like to criticize Microsoft for not having a whole lot of exclusives. But Nintendo released a bunch of rapid-fire small news stories. The first one being that their next mobile game, well, I don't know if it's their next mobile game, but the next mobile game that they've announced is Mario Kart, and it's coming in 2019. So this comes from Nintendo of America's Twitter account. The checkered flag has been raised and the finish line is near. A new mobile application is now in development, Mario Kart Tour. Mario Kart Tour releasing in the fiscal year ending in March 2019. So basically means it'll be out at some point this year or before March.
Ooh.
Wes, what are your thoughts on the prospect of mobile Mario Kart?
I am incredibly excited for this. Mobile games have been around, but it hasn't really been anything to take too incredibly serious when you think of like console games. But Pokemon Go came out
Right.
2 years ago or last year.
Last year.
Last year, yeah, and that was pretty big. I mean, everyone got in on it.
Right.
Pokemon fan or not. So since then, we've seen the South Park mobile game, we've seen Animal Crossing. There's still talk of the Harry Potter.
Right.
I think mobile games are really making this. It's going to be a force to be reckoned with, and with Mario Kart now, I think everyone will have their attention. It'll have everyone's attention come 2019.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people thought that when Super Mario Run was announced, that kind of ended up falling flat with, critically and commercially. I think Nintendo has openly said that game didn't really hit what they expected it to. The thing about mobile games with me, and maybe this is just the way that I play mobile games, is that I'm more of a time killer guy. Which is why Animal Crossing is perfect for me, where it's oh, let me, set these furniture items to craft. Let me craft my clothes and just come back to it later. Yeah. Where I've never played a mobile racing game. So I don't really know how they play. I much rather would prefer playing a racing game with a controller. Granted, I guess the idea with Mario Kart would be that you would use the accelerometer to turn your phone to be able to turn.
Yeah.
But, and another thing would be, I just don't, what would make it different than, Mario Kart 8 on the Switch, where, I feel like that's the definitive best version of Mario Kart that you could ever get. What am I going to get on the mobile version that is going to incentivize me to play it?
I want to go ahead and I'm hastily making a prediction here. With the big thing about Pokemon Go's success is that it is a social experience.
Right.
And I would be very excited to see Mario Kart try to replicate that in that you go out, you find other racers, and you race them together in a public setting.
Yeah, I think there's something to be had there in terms of local multiplayer. I think if they included some sort of hey, yeah, you meet up with your friends and you can race them, and then they give you sort of, whatever the currency is, or, bonus items, points, whatever you want to call them.
Another interesting thing would be, so I don't know if Google Maps is the Pokemon Go navigation.
So. Yeah, I think so.
I would love to see that happen with a Mario Kart mobile game where you go to a location and based on the GPS, that area is the track that you would race on.
Right. That would be interesting. I don't see.
I think that would be fun because then people would they'd go out of their ways to find areas GPS wise that are oh, that would be so crazy to race over there, or hey, let's all meet up over here. This is really hard to do.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there with augmented reality. I think that's the way that you would make it appeal to people on a mobile platform. I think, and granted, Pokemon Go wasn't developed by Nintendo explicitly, but it's the only quote unquote Nintendo game that utilizes augmented reality. So I think pushing that with Mario Kart would probably be the best way to differentiate it. Because to me,
if you don't think that the people working on Mario Kart for mobile are not watching with eagle eyes what Pokemon Go has been doing, that would be absurd.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think you got to be able to differentiate it to me. Because without it, you're just, it's just another Mario Kart game. And to me, it's I'm not going to download it and invest time and money into it before, unless it's something different. moving on to the next kind of mini Nintendo story that came out. They just straight up said, "Hey, Nintendo Switch Online's coming out," which we already knew, but they said it's going to launch in September 2018. So once again, from the Nintendo of America Twitter, hashtag Nintendo Switch Online will launch in September 2018. That's it.
Straight to the point.
Right. So, not a lot of clarity in terms of what the service is going to be. There's that rumor that it's going to be a Netflix style service where you're going to be able to access classic games and be able to play a new game a month, and whether or not you'll be able to keep that game is a big issue. We know it's going to cost $20. But Wes, a lot of people are speculating. A lot of people are theorizing. Why September? Why do you think September?
It seems I try to think of like big releases for Nintendo circa like any year September, and
let me cut you off right there before you get before you go on too far. There hasn't been a game announced that we know of for September yet.
So I think they're predicting a bit of a dry spot.
Well,
in that,
the idea is that they're going to release something in that window. So what? Let me phrase the question a different way. What do you think Nintendo would have to release alongside this service in order to get people to sign up for it? Because because in effect, or in theory, when the system, or when online launches in September, all the previously free to play online games like Splatoon and Mario Kart are now going to require that $20 subscription. So if you're someone like me who has played Mario Kart to death, has played Splatoon to death, and you're not really like excited about the idea of paying $20 a year, even though it's kind of cheap for an online service to play those games, what would you release?
Have they announced a Super Smash Bros?
No, they haven't, and that's.
I want to say I would lose my shit. That's the one.
That's and I'll be honest with you, that's what everyone's saying, and it's crazy with Nintendo because obviously with Nintendo there comes a certain level of hype.
Yeah. And I think that's what this is. I think this broad statement, just hey, we're doing this cut and dry.
Right.
I think they want to see the buzz. They want to see what's going to happen.
And I don't know if you followed the news leading up to that mini direct that they did, where they announced the Dark Souls Switch remaster, and a couple of other games, Mario Tennis Aces and stuff like that. But the hype surrounding that Nintendo Direct was so ridiculous that Nintendo started poking fun and like saying, like feeding the beast, so to speak. So I think they're just gonna. I think 2018 is going to be the year of Nintendo as a troll. I don't think
with the Switch. I think they've earned it. It's a good console,
right? And I don't think. I don't know. Part of me wants a Super Smash Brothers. Part of me thinks we're not going to get one. But I think in order to make the online service viable, you do need that tentpole game to go along with it. Think about Xbox Live and Halo 2. Those games went together like hand in hand. PlayStation Network didn't really take off until later on, after they I can't even think of a PlayStation online game that really, like you had the Resistance games, but those weren't really like.
I would say Killzone definitely helped them.
Yeah, Killzone would probably be the big one that kind of legitimized that service.
Do you want me to be completely honest? Like my opinion.
Yeah.
I just think at the time, Xbox was not really satisfying. Like even with online. So I think people just kind of shifted over to PlayStation and found like, hey, this is an acceptable form of online. And I
think that you couldn't have been farther from the truth there, because I think during the the original Xbox and the 360 days, Microsoft was kind of like the gold standard of how to do exclusives and online service and multiplayer, where Sony had a lot of issues, where you had the big like hack where everyone's personal information was breached. You had the huge outage of, I think it was 2011 when the PlayStation Network was down for months. I remember at the time I was pissed because Killzone 3 had just come out. So it's like I can't play this game that, I played through the campaign, I beat it, but I couldn't play any of the multiplayer because PSN was down. So I think it's the opposite in that Microsoft has always had the kind of gold star rating as far as
looking back,
goes.
looking back how you're saying it, it does sound true.
No, that
I'm
being
trying to think
said,
of games like Mag. Mag was a good one that really got
but
people.
it wasn't Halo. That's the thing. It wasn't
That's
the
true.
killer app. But yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because Xbox has always been the gold standard. PlayStation's kind of just always been in the middle, especially now with PlayStation Network. Like I feel like they're not on par with Xbox Live, but they're definitely a solid option. Nintendo's kind of always been the black sheep with online services. The GameCube never had any sort of online connectivity. Where the PS2 and Xbox were messing around with it. The Wii was very like, I want to say the Wii is when they introduced the friend code thing, and of course they've always had friend codes ever since. So I mean, as far as like if you and I want to be friends on Switch, like instead of being able to look up your username and just add you, I gotta like, oh, give me your friend code. Okay, well now here's my friend code, and now we're friends. And it's not like it's these short, simple numbers. It's these long, elaborate codes that you have to look up and send to each other. So it'll be interesting to see how, if at all, Nintendo will simplify or make their online infrastructure more user friendly. Because as of right now, it's not.
If I had to change, well, not change my answer, but so Super Smash Brothers would be the obvious one. And everyone was sort of even before you asked me, I could feel like that was on the tip of your tongue.
You were frothing at the mouth. That's why I kind of guided you in that way. And the reason I guided you in that way is because all of games media feels the same way as well. We want Super Smash Bros.
I want to be the person who can go off the beaten path. I want to say something that maybe not a lot of people are saying, and I feel like I would be just as excited if this is what they announced and said. I would love to see a multiplayer Star Fox game.
That would be cool.
I think that could be incredible.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on what how you frame it. Obviously Star Fox has always been kind of this single player, linear thing. But I also think with the Switch, Nintendo's going to make it a habit or a point to kind of like revolutionize their IPs. You saw it with Zelda. You saw it somewhat with Mario. They're already talking about it with the next Pokemon, that it's going to be a change, a departure from what Pokemon normally is. So I think being able to change Star Fox and make it this kind of multiplayer dog fighting simulator, that would be kind of cool. I'm kind of with you on that, and I think it's within the realm of possibility given what Nintendo's trying to do with their properties. So moving on, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that before we moved on?
I'm actually really excited, and I've been a PlayStation boy almost all my life, but I've always had a love for Nintendo too, and depending on what comes in the future, I could see myself getting a Switch.
Yeah, they're definitely worth it, and I just hope and I wish that Nintendo makes it worth my $20 a year is nothing compared to what Microsoft and Sony are charging you.
Yeah.
But it's still $20. And if you're going to go from, there was that huge outrage when Sony decided to start charging for PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go from being a free service to charging, you kind of have to give gamers the value. And, a free download every month isn't going to quite cut it.
Especially if you're only allotted that game for the month.
Right. So they'll have to, I know they're going to have to improve their infrastructure. They're going to have to offer more robust online settings, party chat, make it simple instead of, complicated like they've been so far. And, we'll see. Otherwise, it'll just be another online service that, we feel like we're being nickeled and dimed for.
So with the mysterious Nintendo release, do you think that mysterious Nintendo release would be their free game of that month, or do you think they would do something else?
No, right now their plan is to do classic games as those free games of the month. It's
I
not going to
think
be like a PlayStation Plus thing where, hey, Rocket League is our free game of the month and it like releases and it also is PlayStation Plus that month.
yeah.
They're going to be like, hey, our free game of the month is The Legend of Zelda, the NES classic Legend of Zelda, and oh, this month is Super Mario Brothers, and they're kind of just going to
Nice.
redo the classics.
Oh, okay. I think if you wanted to hook people on top of releasing like an all new game, I think Breath of the Wild wouldn't be too far out there, especially if you really want to hook people and not make them feel so bitter
Yeah.
about losing their free service.
Yeah, I don't see Nintendo doing that. They're just now embracing like season passes and DLC in their games,
Yeah.
which we've had for almost a decade now. So to think that they would give away their biggest, arguably their biggest release of 2017 for free a year later, I don't see it happening. I think it'll definitely just be very much, hey, here's this obscure ass NES game that we haven't released in a decade, and we just kind of
Uh,
redid it, add some game modes, add some online
Fucking
play, and yeah, that's pretty much what you're gonna get with Nintendo. You're not gonna get any of
here's
the
Dig Dug.
shit. I would be fine with Dig Dug, even though it's not a Nintendo game. I would play the shit out of some Dig Dug on my Switch. Moving onward, last item of news is a bit of a bittersweet one. You get the good with the bad. The bad being that Red Dead Redemption 2 has been delayed from its spring 2018 release window, but we did get a concrete release date, October 26th. So this was written directly by Rockstar Games. Dear all, we are excited to announce that Red Dead Redemption 2 will be released on October 26th, 2018. We apologize to everyone disappointed by this delay. While we had hoped to have the game out sooner, we require a little extra time for polish. We sincerely thank you for your patience and hope that when you get to play the game, you will agree that the wait will have been worth it. In the meantime, please check out these screenshots from the game. We look forward to sharing a lot more information with you in the coming weeks. With thanks, Rockstar Games. Fucking Rockstar and their absolute need to be perfect. Let me tell you. Wes, did you think that this game at any point was going to come out in spring, or are you legitimately surprised that it got delayed?
I am absolutely surprised that it got delayed because I'm thinking the exact opposite. I'm still very bitter about GTA 5, especially GTA Online. I was promised day one online multiplayer that would just revolutionize my Grand Theft Auto experience. And it was pushed back and back and back. The idea that they're actually taking their time to make sure everything is perfect does seem a bit more surprising for me because as of this last game, I am used to the opposite.
Now, they haven't announced anything as far as like Red Dead Redemption Online, anything like that, but it's safe to assume that Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to have some multiplayer component. Do you think that that's going to launch day and date with Red Dead Redemption 2?
It seems a lot more likely now that they've gone ahead and delayed it. It seems like they're definitely they if it's what I'm thinking is like they know, hey, last time we did this, we really fucked up our multiplayer stuff. So we need to make sure that when we release it, if that's what they're going to do, it needs to be spot on. It needs to be day one. It needs to be perfect. And part of me, I'm mad. I want to punch someone in the teeth that they're delaying this game, but I also want to just bravo. EA needs to take a look at these guys. And sorry, EA, I hate to just bring you in every conversation.
To be fair, they did eventually fix GTA Online. It took a long time. It took a longer time than what we were promised.
Yes.
I don't think you're going to see whatever Red Dead Redemption 2's online is at launch. I think Rockstar know, and I think Rockstar wants you to play through the single player campaign. I think if GTA 5 had released with GTA Online day and date, I don't think many people would have sat through and played through the story all the way through, which is a shame because it really is a good story and the characters in it are great. So I think I think
Yeah,
they're I think
if
they're
that's
kind
the
of
case, then I think that's a good idea. To not release the multiplayer on day
yeah.
one, that would be really good. So if that's not what they're doing, still good. I like the fact that they're going to take their time. I want this game to be perfect. I was a huge Red Dead Redemption fan, and
Yeah, no, I
so
mean, and that being said, like, do I think that the Red Dead Redemption 2 online multiplayer component, will it be as bad as GTA Online was? No, absolutely not. Like,
no,
I think they'll have it ready. I don't think it'll be day and date. I think it'll be like a couple weeks later, and they'll say, "All right, you guys have had enough time. You played through Red Dead Redemption. Here's the story's over. Here's Red Dead Redemption Online," and frame it similarly to how GTA Online is, because that makes them boatloads of money.
yeah,
So I think it's obviously it's 100% gonna happen, but I definitely think it'll be, and I'm with you. I think I'm a little disappointed that the release date isn't in April. I was looking forward to having something that big and meaty, no no pun intended, um, for lack of a better term. I was looking forward to having
Mm,
something, you know, lengthy to play throughout the summer, where it usually gets God, everything's an innuendo now, isn't it?
mm.
I was looking forward to having a long game to play over the summer when not a whole lot's coming out, and now I'm not going to have that. So really, my last hope is with Sony and oh god, Sony and Insomniac for releasing Spider-Man. I feel like that's the
Ooh,
most likely. You got God of War in April, so
yeah.
that'll last you about a month. That's supposed to be a lengthier kind of game. I
Hmm.
think you got to have a Spider-Man sometime in May and June, and I think if you do, then and it'll be
What
awesome.
was the last God of War game? It wasn't God of War 3, but
There was like Ascension and a couple of spin-offs and stuff like that.
there was one that had some kind of multiplayer element that I
Yeah,
remember.
I think it was Ascension.
Now, do you think they would try something like that again? I don't remember God of War multiplayer being something memorable,
No,
and
yeah, that from what I've seen, and granted, I haven't watched like every interview or video clip about God of War, so it
yeah,
may very well have a multiplayer component. But they've been like Corey. I can't remember the director's last name. But the game director has pretty much said this is going to be like a story driven, lengthy open world experience. So I doubt that they would have the resources or the desire really to just kind of shoehorn a multiplayer component in.
I mean, it seems like the story. Well, not necessarily the plot of the story, but definitely the layout of the story is definitely has some influence of Last of Us, and that did have a pretty solid multiplayer in it.
Yeah, yeah, but I think mechanically you had a little bit more there from like the survival and the shooting and stuff like that, where God of War is all about just like putting together these crazy combos and making it look like high action. And I would
Yeah,
even say that the new one seems a little bit more subdued from an action standpoint. It feels a lot like heavier, the combat. You're not
yeah,
like
you're more
flinging,
grounded.
yeah, you're not flinging swords around, jumping in the air. Yeah, it's more like, bracing yourself, taking damage, counter attacking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So moving on from the news, that's all the news that we've got from the past week. Last week we mentioned some of the games that were to release this week, and now we have reviews for those games. And by those games, I mean UFC 3. UFC 3 got it's averaging about a 77 on Open Critic. You've got GameSpot giving it an 8 out of 10, IGN a 7.5. Really, the main criticism seems to be that it still can't figure out how to do ground combat. UFC games have always been great with striking and grappling on, when you're standing up, but for some reason, when you get to the ground and the submission part of it, it just doesn't work.
It
So
makes for great gifs on the internet.
yeah, yeah, and I think, and kind of to that point, they also said the collision the collision detection is still really clunky. So I think you're going to see a lot more gifs out there, gifs, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, and that's really, and side note, Dissidia Final Fantasy NT was also released this past week, and I haven't seen a single damn review for that game. I mean, I've seen a few reviews, but they've been from like, you don't really see them from the IGNs, the GameSpot. Like GameSpot doesn't have a Dissidia review up there. Polygon doesn't. I think IGN, I forgot what, like not the official IGN office, but like, they have IGN Spain and IGN Japan or whatever, wherever they are. Yeah, so I guess
that's not good. I guess
I think what it is just no one gives a shit. Like after Dragon Ball Fighters came out, like no one really is paying attention to Dissidia, and I mean, based on what I saw of the game, you could kind of tell because it just didn't really look that good. Like it was very pretty. It looked very pretty, but it just didn't. Just seemed really complicated and really only spoke to a very, very small hardcore crowd of like, oh, do you like Final Fantasy? Cool. Do you like fighting games? Cool. Like that's a very small percentage of gamers. So
I like to think of those really oddly specific T-shirts that are on the internet, like, oh hey, don't mess with me. My name's Greg, and I was born on November.
Right? Yeah, like the what are those? Like the bot generated T-shirts. Exactly. Just seems like, and it's a shame because you'd think Final Fantasy fighting would be perfect, but if they could just nail the execution of it, I feel like it'd be a whole lot better. Whereas it seems just way too technical right now. Yeah. But the other big game that got reviews actually did not come out this past week. It's actually coming out next week, but the embargo lifted this week, is the Shadow of the Colossus remake, which is currently averaging a 93 on OpenCritic. Many people are calling it the best remake ever made. And this is coming in a post-Crash Insane trilogy, which I thought you couldn't get any better in terms of a remake. As far as
at a loss for words.
Yeah, at a loss for words. I mean, GameSpot gave it a 9 out of 10. Polygon gave it a 9.5. IGN gave it a 9.7. Like, Wes, are you excited to just dive back into Shadow of the Colossus?
I am so excited to jump back in. So, looking into it and like looking at what Shadow of the Colossus was, it was very minimalist, like, there wasn't any, you didn't have, a lot of things to kill. You didn't have a very detailed, complicated story. You're here, you have to kill these 16 colossi.
Oh god, I don't remember the number. You're putting me on
somewhere
the spot
between
now.
8 and 16
I want to say it was
colossi.
12, but I could be totally wrong.
It's, but like, you have these very few things that you have to kill. It was hard to even...
Hi, Wes.
Hello.
Goodbye.
But so, it was very hard to even describe the game as like what it was. Like, I think people ended up decided to call it like a puzzle game. Like, it's, because combating these things was you had to solve a puzzle, essentially.
Right. And it's such a not... A lot of people call it a lot of people would put it in their top 5, top 10 games of all time. And like, that's such a hard list for me to crack. I'm eager to get back in and replay it because I'm interested to see if it's more nostalgia than actually being good. Which I know that's kind of an extreme statement to say because I know it's good. I know it's a good game.
Yeah.
But I wonder if, nostalgia is being like, oh, it's one of the best games ever, where like there were definitely some flaws with it back in the day. But it'll be interesting to see if it holds up after all these years. I'm
very hopeful that it does.
Yeah, I mean, and the only reason I'm that, like, any smidgen, like, I'm with you. I'm excited. I'm really excited for it. The only reason I'm slightly, I can't think of the word. I'm slightly concerned. We'll say concerned. Is because of The Last Guardian, which that was developed by the people that made Shadow of the Colossus, and that game controlled like a goddamn mess.
You're feeling like maybe they lost their touch, and so
not even that. Where it's like,
yeah,
that game controlled like in a very dated way. Like it felt like a PS2. Well, granted, that has something to do with the fact that the game was in development for freaking 12 years, but it felt like I was playing a PS2 game on the PS4. Like the controls were just wonky. The Trico didn't listen to you at all. So I know it's a different team handling the remake, and they've said that they made some changes to the controls. So I'd be interested to see what it's like to get in there and play it in the year 2018 as opposed to 2005 when it came out.
Yeah, 2005. I did the research.
Good man.
2005.
Good man.
I was like, man, I gotta find that out.
That's why I bring you on the show, because you get your facts straight. So looking ahead now, obviously on Tuesday you've got the Shadow of the Colossus remake dropping. Later on in the week on Thursday you've got the Civilization 6 expansion Rise and Fall coming out. I am a big Civilization fan. I didn't play as much Civilization 6 as I wanted to. Maybe this will get me back into it. Maybe not, because I'll probably be balls deep in Shadow of the Colossus. Another one, Wes, this might be up your alley since you just built a PC. Rust is coming out of early access. It is a 1.0 release finally. So
everyone on the force is like, hey, you need to play Rust.
Yeah, if you want to get in there and be naked and break trees with rocks, that's the game for you.
I do like being naked and breaking trees with rocks.
Turn trees into assault rifles somehow. I don't know how the crafting of that game works.
That game was made for me then.
Later on in the week on Friday, you've got the Switch version of Dragon Quest Builders, which is Minecraft in the Dragon Quest universe. And you have Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition coming out on mobile devices. Wes, do you know anything about Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition?
I know that it's been talked about for quite a long time.
Yeah.
That's really it. So I've seen some images.
Yeah, it is. So obviously, image-wise, it is like a chibi version of Final Fantasy 15. It's broken up. It breaks up the story into different chapters, and they're releasing them episodically on mobile devices. So whether or not that'll get me to play and enjoy the story of Final Fantasy 15, maybe. Because that was a world and characters that I just could not get into.
That's always upsetting.
They all looked the same. They all were wearing black leather, so you just couldn't tell who was who, and they all looked the same to me. So, and the world.
That's why I have a hard time with boy bands.
Yeah, and I mean the world was big and open and vast, but it was also empty. There was nothing to do in it. So maybe the fact that it's a more streamlined, story heavy experience, maybe I'll hop in and play some on my mobile device. Maybe I won't. Who knows?
We'll have to see.
So Wesley, we've reached the end of the show. And I want to take this moment to talk to you because, you're a new PC owner. Every PC owner has to experience the best that the platform has to offer. So I've put together a really short, really small list of games that I would recommend to you to test out your beautiful new PC on. These games, most of them at this point, are multi-platform. Most of them are a couple years old, but when I played them on the PC, they were hands down the perfect, I wouldn't say the perfect, but the best versions of those games. So kicking it off with The Witcher 3. I know you played The Witcher 3 on PlayStation 4, but visually, backtracking a little bit, you never beat The Witcher 3, first of all.
That is honestly, so I have a lot of shameful things that I've done in my life, but that is top 3, hands down. So
the PC version of that game, it's hands down just better, way better looking in every way. Now, granted, I haven't played the PS4 Pro version, I haven't played the Xbox One X version. Apparently, they've enhanced it. But in terms of when the game came out, 2014.
That was the way to do it.
Was it 2014? No, it was 2016.
We really need to know these things.
I should probably know these things. It was 2015.
2015. All right.
Goddamn, that game was gorgeous, and it's to this day I wouldn't say to this day, but it was up until recently my visuals test. If I ever made an upgrade to a component of my computer, the graphic card, CPU, whatever, I would usually fire up The Witcher 3 just to see how it looked because it was so goddamn beautiful. Nice. Speaking of games that I used as benchmarks, Doom, the 2016 Doom. Holy shit, that game. Did you play it at all?
Yeah, yeah.
I played it like a little bit.
When we hung out, you made me play it, and
Right. It's
I mean,
so
killing demons with metal music. They're it's the simple things in
right.
life that just
And the reason I recommend that game now, it runs at 60 frames a second across all platforms, but obviously the PC
yeah.
version gives you the best looking version of the game. But
Oof.
that is a game like I was never someone who would swear by frames per second. I would always just be like, just give me the prettiest version of the game as long as it doesn't stutter. Doom made me a believer in 60 frames a second, where
Wow.
I will always look for the best version visually, but if your game demands it, I will be all about the frame rate and how smooth that game is just so smooth.
Nice.
Yeah, if you can, and I know you can run it on that PC because I ran it on mine.
Nice.
The third one I got for you is one. It's a little bit selfish on my part. It's one that I just want to play together with you. One that we've streamed together. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I really don't think that game needs any more introduction than what we've given it because goddamn, it's just a really good game.
That is definitely it's Halo 2 now. It is what Halo 2 became.
I mean,
It is just
you're already seeing like tons of knockoffs and stuff like that too. So that's imitation is the best form of flattery, or imitation is a
really
form of
is.
flattery.
Yeah.
So yeah, PUBG, just do it.
Mhm.
Another one, which is one that I have yet to jump into myself. So you could say I'm a little bit of a hypocrite or a little bit of, you know, I'm making this recommendation without actually having an idea of how good this game is. But Divinity Original Sin 2. This is a game that released last year, widely regarded as one of the best RPGs of all time. It's the game that you and I talked about that has pretty much the custom D&D mode in it,
Yeah.
where you've got a person operating as the game master and they can spawn different enemies and create different narrative branches and things like that, and other players can play through the campaign cooperatively, which, knowing how much you love tabletop RPGs and pen and paper RPGs, I feel like
I was gonna mention to the audience that tabletop pencil paper RP role playing games is sort of something like last year and going forward into this year. I can't get enough of
right.
it.
And Divinity Original Sin 2, I mean, as far as what I've heard, the story is great. Like it seems to blend the best parts of like Dragon Age with like Dungeons and Dragons. So where you can it's customizable enough to where you can make it your own and make your own campaigns and run through it with friends, and I own it. Our dear friend Matthew owns it, and I feel like you need to own it so we can run in there and kill shit together.
I will gladly DM for you.
The last one I've got for you is a smaller game, but it is probably my favorite PC exclusive game of all time, Torchlight 2. It is made by Torchlight. The Torchlight series is made by the now closed Runic Games, which is comprised of some series veterans, people who worked on like Diablo 1 and 2. So it's that style of game, like the over the top third person RPG, isometric RPGs where you're clicking, going from point to point, and goddamn, that game is so addictive. Like when that game came out, it was like I spent the whole summer playing that game. It's procedurally generated, so you're just constantly, I mean, like there's just hundreds of hours of stuff to do, and the art style is great. It's fun to play, and it's only like $5. So if you get on Steam and look at it right now, it's probably dirt cheap. So definitely recommend it. There's co-op to it.
Nice.
That being said, that's going to be the end of our show, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you guys watching us here. Once again, this was Red Tooth Games Weekly. You can find us at Red Tooth Games on Facebook at facebook.com/RedToothGames, twitter.com/RedToothGames, and on YouTube as well. We appreciate you guys watching us, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you very much.